He was only 19 when it happened the first time. I was 34, married, and struggling to keep the pieces of my life from shattering. It happened in the dead silence of a stormy Saturday night, under the same roof where we were both raised. His touch was hesitant, but it made my entire body scream awake. What started as comfort turned into something far more dangerous. For 2 whole years, I lived a double life, sneaking, lying, craving, and giving myself to my own younger brother in ways no woman should. And when the truth finally came out, it destroyed more than just my marriage. It tore apart everything I ever called family. Before I dive fully into this story, I want to say a massive thank you to all my subscribers. You all are the reason this channel keeps going, and your support means the world. To every new and returning viewer who is yet to hit that subscribe button, I am truly grateful you are here. I cannot wait for you to become a part of this family by subscribing. It is the fuel that powers this channel. Do not forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts below once this chapter ends. I read every comment, and your feedback inspires more stories like this. Now, let us begin. My name is Heather. I am a 40-year-old white American woman, born and raised in suburban Pennsylvania. For most of my adult life, I played the role of the perfect wife. I cooked, I smiled, I worked part-time at a local preschool, and I kept our house in shape while my husband, Greg, handled everything financial. On the outside, we looked solid. But behind those beige walls, something had died between us long ago. Greg was not a bad man, but he was cold. After 10 years of marriage, he had become more like a roommate than a husband. Intimacy faded. Conversations became business transactions. I would dress up, hoping for a compliment, but he barely looked up from his phone. He always said he was tired, or stressed, or had deadlines. So, I stopped asking for attention. And then there was Ryan, my younger brother. He was my father's second child from another marriage, almost 15 years younger than me. I still remember holding him as a baby, brushing his curly brown hair, and kissing his cheeks. He was the only person in my life who looked at me with warmth, real warmth. After our mother passed away, he became more than just my half-brother. He was my closest living family. When Ryan turned 19, he moved in with us while attending college nearby. He was working part-time at a gym and trying to save money. I convinced Greg to let him stay in the basement guest room, which gave him some privacy. But what I never expected was how much I would start noticing him differently. Ryan had grown into a man. Tall, toned, with broad shoulders and gentle eyes. He always smelled like soap and cologne, and he had this deep, slow way of talking that made me feel seen, really seen. It started with simple things. He would help me wash dishes. He would ask how my day was. He would tell me I looked good in a dress, something Greg had not said in years. One rainy afternoon, I had been crying in the bathroom. I do not even remember what triggered it anymore, probably just another silent dinner with Greg. My mascara had smudged, and I had collapsed on the tiled floor. Ryan knocked, gently, asking if I was all right. I told him to go away. He did not. He came in, sat beside me, and just wrapped his arms around me. It was the first time in years someone had held me like that. I cried into his chest, and he rocked me slowly, not saying a word. When I looked up at him, something shifted. My lips trembled. His eyes searched mine. And in that heavy silence, I kissed him. It was soft. It was confused. But it was not an accident. We pulled away quickly. I stood up and muttered something about not feeling well. He apologized and rushed downstairs. For the next few days, we avoided each other. I could not sleep. I hated myself. But I also replayed that kiss over and over in my mind. One night, Greg left for a weekend conference. It was just me and Ryan at home. I cooked dinner. We barely talked. After cleaning up, I went to the living room and poured myself a glass of wine. I was wearing a loose tank top and shorts. I knew what I was doing, and I hated that I did. But part of me wanted it. Needed it. He came upstairs, stood at the edge of the room, and said he was sorry for the kiss. I told him not to be. I told him I was lonely. I told him Greg had not touched me in 6 months. He took a step forward. I should have stopped him. But I did not. That night, we crossed every line. It was not wild or aggressive. It was slow, tender, almost reverent. His hands trembled as he touched me, and I guided him with whispered instructions. He worshipped my body like it was something sacred. And I gave in, completely. Afterward, we lay in silence, tangled in each other. He traced circles on my back while I stared at the ceiling, my heart pounding. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. But mostly, I wanted him to stay. The next morning, he tried to leave early. I stopped him. I told him I needed this. He looked confused, but also relieved. We never talked about it again. But a few nights later, it happened again. And again. Until it became routine. He would come to my room after Greg fell asleep. Or sometimes, during the day when Greg was at work. We found hidden corners, risky windows of time, all for a taste of something forbidden. I became addicted to the thrill, the danger, the warmth. But with every stolen moment, the guilt grew heavier. I avoided eye contact with Greg. I could barely face myself in the mirror. And yet, I could not stop. I told myself lies. That I deserved to be touched. That no one had to know. That Ryan was not really my brother because we did not grow up together. But deep down, I knew exactly what I was doing. And I was playing with fire. That fire would eventually consume everything. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. What started as a desperate moment of emotional collapse became a secret rhythm to my life. I was living 2 lives under one roof, one as the unfulfilled wife of a disinterested man, and the other as a woman consumed by lust and twisted affection for her younger brother. It was wrong. I knew that. But knowing something is wrong does not always make it stop. Sometimes, it only makes the desire stronger. Ryan and I developed an unspoken system. We kept our distance during the day, polite, casual, like any pair of siblings. But when night fell, and the house went quiet, I would unlock my bedroom door. Sometimes he would knock once, wait for my response, and slip inside. Other times, I would go downstairs, barefoot, heart racing, and crawl into his bed like I had every right to be there. We never talked about what we were doing. We never labeled it. It was not love. Not in the romantic, storybook sense. But it was something just as powerful. It was a hunger that grew louder the more we fed it. Every touch, every moan, every moment of skin against skin pulled me deeper into a world I could no longer escape. By the 3rd month, I had mastered the art of deceit. Greg worked late most nights and came home too tired to care. He never noticed the small changes. The lace underwear I started buying. The perfume I wore to bed. The way I hummed while making breakfast. If he suspected anything, he never said a word. He had checked out of our marriage long before Ryan checked into my life. Ryan changed too. He became more confident. More possessive. He would get irritated if I ignored him during family gatherings or if I acted too distant when friends were around. Once, he got jealous of a coworker who had hugged me goodbye at a party. That night, he pulled me into the laundry room and took me right there against the dryer. It was reckless. Hot. Dangerous. And I let him. I encouraged it. Sometimes, I would look at him and forget that he was my brother. He felt like my secret lover, my escape. He said things that made me feel alive again. He worshipped my body in ways Greg never did. He craved me. And I craved that feeling. But beneath the thrill, guilt festered. I avoided my father. I stopped answering my stepmother's calls. I flinched when people asked how Ryan was doing. I began to resent Greg for being so distant. A small part of me even blamed him for pushing me into this. But the truth was, I had chosen it. Every step, every kiss, every lie, I chose it. One afternoon, everything almost came crashing down. I had just come back from grocery shopping. Ryan was home early from school. Greg was working from the upstairs office. I was in the kitchen putting away bags when Ryan came up behind me and slid his hand under my shirt. I giggled and told him to stop. He did not. Before I could react, he turned me around, kissed me deeply, and backed me up against the fridge. I should have pushed him away. But instead, I gave in. The moment grew hotter, faster. My shirt came off. He lifted me onto the counter. Just as he was about to unbuckle his jeans, we heard Greg call from upstairs, asking where the printer paper was. We froze. I shoved Ryan off me, heart pounding. I told him to leave, now. He grabbed his hoodie and disappeared down the hall. I stood there, breathless, half-naked, shaking with fear. I realized then how careless we had become. That night, I told Ryan we needed to stop. He stared at me like I had stabbed him. He asked me if I regretted everything. I told him I did not. I told him I was just scared. He said he loved me. The words hit me like a brick. I told him not to say that again. I was not ready to face what it meant. But even after that, we did not stop. We simply became more careful. We avoided touching in common areas. We stopped making eye contact during dinner. We used text messages to arrange our late-night meetings. I deleted every message after reading them. I cleared my browser history, avoided journaling, and stayed paranoid every time Greg picked up my phone. 6 months in, my period was late. Panic swept over me like a flood. I stayed up for 2 nights in a row, staring at the ceiling, thinking of every possible outcome. What if I was pregnant? What if it was his? What would I do? I took a test in secret. It came back negative. Relief washed over me like cold rain, but it left a scar. That moment showed me how close we had come to losing everything. I tried to stop again. I even suggested that Ryan move out. He refused. He begged me not to abandon him. He said no one in the world understood him like I did. That I was the only person he could trust. His words made my heart twist. He was right. I had raised him, comforted him, protected him. But I had also corrupted him. As the months passed, our addiction to each other deepened. We became more than just physical. We would stay up late talking in whispers. He would tell me about his college stress, his dreams, his fears. I told him about my loneliness, about how invisible I had felt for years. We built a world no one else was allowed into. But it could not last forever. One night, during Thanksgiving weekend, something changed. The entire family was at my house, my father, stepmother, Greg's parents, cousins, everyone. Ryan had been distant all day. He barely looked at me. I cornered him in the hallway and asked what was wrong. He told me we were getting reckless. That he felt trapped. That he wanted more, but he knew he could never have it. That night, he did not come to my room. I waited, door unlocked, heart heavy. But he never came. The next day, he avoided me entirely. For the first time in nearly a year, I felt abandoned. I had built my life around a secret that no longer wanted me. I felt foolish. Hollow. Angry. And yet, I could not blame him. What we had was never sustainable. It was built on shadows and shame. But the story does not end there. In fact, the worst part had not even begun. I never imagined how quickly silence could become a punishment. After Ryan stopped coming to my room, I felt like I was detoxing from a drug. The air in the house felt heavier, colder. Every sound echoed. Every glance from him that used to warm me now burned like ice. Days passed, and then weeks. He was still living under my roof, but he had locked himself away, physically and emotionally. He stopped texting me. He stopped eating dinner with us. He made excuses to stay out longer, and when I asked if he was all right, he gave clipped answers like fine or busy. It hurt more than I expected. I had prepared for the guilt. I had not prepared for the loneliness. Then one Saturday morning, I saw him in the living room with a girl. She was young, maybe his age, with soft curls and a nervous smile. He introduced her to Greg and me casually, calling her Lacey, his classmate. He did not even look at me when he said her name. I forced a polite smile, but inside, my chest felt like it was being crushed. Later that night, I stood outside his bedroom door, just listening. I heard them laugh. Then I heard the bed creak. That sound stayed with me long after I walked back to my room. I did not sleep a second that night. The next morning, I tried to play it cool. I asked him casually if she was his girlfriend. He shrugged and said, something like that. And then, as if to twist the knife, he added, "At least she is not someone I am ashamed to be with." I knew then that something in him had turned. The shame that had been buried under pleasure now surfaced like a monster. He blamed me. And maybe he was right. I had been the adult. The married woman. The one who should have said no. But I had not. And now, the consequences were seeping into every corner of my life. I started drinking more. Nothing obvious. Just an extra glass of wine at night. Maybe two. It helped me numb the ache. But it also made me careless. Greg began to notice the change in my mood, the way I snapped at him, the way I cried over small things. He asked if I was okay. I lied and said work was stressing me out. He offered to take a weekend trip together. I agreed. I was desperate for anything to make the pain go away. But the damage had already been done. One Friday afternoon, I came home early from work and found Ryan sitting at the kitchen table with Lacey. She was laughing, flipping through an old photo album from my childhood. I froze. That book had pictures of us as kids. Naked in the bathtub. Playing in the yard. Lying on the couch in pajamas. I walked in and ripped the album out of her hands without thinking. She looked startled. Ryan stood up and told me I was being rude. That was the moment I knew I had lost him completely. The next week, Greg borrowed my laptop to order something online. He asked me for the password, and I gave it to him, not thinking. I had forgotten to clear my browser history. I had forgotten to delete a folder on my desktop. He found it. It had pictures. Not explicit ones. But intimate. Photos of Ryan and me sitting too close. A screenshot of a text message where Ryan had called me his everything. My heart sank the moment I heard him call my name with that sharp, quiet tone only reserved for serious things. He sat me down in the living room. The laptop was open on the coffee table. The folder was open. He did not yell. He did not scream. He just asked me if it was true. I could not speak. He stood up and walked out. He did not take the car. He just walked. Hours passed. I tried to call him. He ignored every call. When he came home, he went straight to the guest room and locked the door. The next morning, he said he wanted a divorce. He did not want to hear an explanation. He did not ask for one. He told me he had called a lawyer and that he would be moving out in a week. I begged. I cried. I fell to my knees. He looked at me like I was a stranger. And maybe I was. I called Ryan that night. I told him what happened. He was silent for a long time. Then he said, "Good. Now it is over." And he hung up. I did not hear from him for 2 months. The divorce went through faster than I thought. Greg did not fight for anything. He gave me the house. He just wanted to disappear. Word spread through our family. I had no idea how much Greg told them, but the looks I got from my father and stepmother said enough. I became the scandal. The woman no one talked about but everyone gossiped about. Then one evening, Ryan came back. Just showed up at my door like nothing had happened. He looked older. Harder. He stood in the doorway and asked if he could come in. I let him. He walked to the living room, sat down, and stared at the same spot where Greg once found the folder. "I am sorry," he said. I asked him for what? For ruining my life? For pretending it meant something? For loving me? He said he was sorry for letting it get so far. For not stopping it when he had the chance. He said he had been seeing a therapist. That he was trying to understand what happened. That he knew it was wrong but part of him still missed it. I told him I missed it too. But missing something does not make it right. We sat there for a long time. No touching. No lies. Just silence. That was the last time I saw him. He moved to another state. Cut off most contact with the family. I heard from my father that he was doing better. I was glad. But I never fully healed. Some wounds leave permanent scars. Some mistakes leave permanent echoes. I live alone now. No husband. No brother. No family that truly trusts me anymore. I tell this story not for pity. Not for attention. But as a warning. Sometimes, what feels like love is really a reflection of our pain. And when you feed pain with pleasure, it grows into something monstrous. Thank you for listening and drop your thoughts on the comments section. Let's talk.